project investigating longitudinal literacy policies in the United States. To frame the problem, a vast majority of literacy policy focuses on K through 3 and neglects grades 4 through 12. There are negative adverse outcomes associated with non-literate individuals in these later grades. This leads us to a research question: what policies and strategies have states adopted to improve literacy in grades 4 through 12? Through combing through the literature, we identified 4 main categories: disciplinary specific literacy for college and career readiness, evidence-based strategies in the classroom, extracurricular, community and family engagement, and professional development. Moving into our methodology, we conducted a comparative case study with 15 states where we conducted interviews and also collected qualitative and quantitative data. We coded interviews and also determined which state policies were described by the literature review categories we established earlier. The data types we analyzed were legislation, policy reports, interviews, budget line items, NAEP scores, and the number of implemented programs in each state. Our interviews were candidates from state education agencies that had similar roles, and we used snowball sampling to identify additional interview candidates. We also coded interview transcripts using NVivo software. We contacted our interviewees, we followed up with them, and we interviewed 15 total states, shown here on this map. Moving into our findings, this is a broad overview of the state literacy programs. As you can see, our 4 main categories are present alongside 2 new ones: literacy coaching and individualized reading plans that were determined empirically and are indicated with an asterisk. And we will now go further into each of these programs more in detail. Professional development had almost all states fulfilling some form of professional development programming, but it's not often required for higher grade levels. Minnesota requires professional development in literacy for all K through 12 teachers. Colorado determines this at the district level, and South Carolina actually rescinded requirements for grade 6 through 12 teachers. Moving into evidence-based strategies in the classroom, all 15 states had some sort of evidence-based strategies. However, only 12 of the 15 states had implemented science of reading curriculum, which is the most common approach for K through 3. However, we would like to emphasize that science of reading is a good foundation, but not so much focused on in 4 through 12 grades. Extracurricular family and community engagement included public awareness campaigns and community reading events. Some notable states were Rhode Island, Georgia, Washington, and Connecticut in these areas. And finally, the last of our 4 main categories was discipline-specific literacy, which was most commonly used to prepare students for careers. Alabama and Missouri had career technical agricultural education standards implemented, and Maine focused more on that disciplinary literacy portion with optional trainings for educators. Moving into our 2 additional categories, which were literacy coaches and individualized intervention plans. Literacy coaches actually advise teachers on how to instruct literacy as a form of professional development, and they help in schools and at the district levels. We found California, Missouri, and Alabama to be particularly skilled at these implementations. Moving into individualized intervention plans, these are plans assigned to students that are failing to meet benchmarks in order to better support them. And in Kentucky, Louisiana, and Connecticut, we noticed particular efforts to help these struggling students. Our key findings included that professional development in the science of reading are critical for building foundational reading skills. Literacy coaches have been very common in grades K through 3, but less so for 4 through 12. And individualized intervention plans remediate struggling students who progress past the 3rd grade. Finally, we did identify some challenges that states face in order to actually adopt these policies that we've identified, the first of which being local control. States have districts and want to listen to their district's needs and aren't always able to legislate over the state as a whole. Organizational barriers where states are not actually able to create a designated office for secondary literacy, and limited data and lack of political appetite. Moving into our policy recommendations, we would advise states to start somewhere and begin adopting adolescent literacy policies, science of reading legislation as a foundation, literacy coaches at either the state, local, or regional level, individualized reading plans for the struggling students that we mentioned earlier, expanding the scope of education agencies, and finally, extending literacy training requirements for post-3rd grade teachers. And that is our project. Thank you so much for listening.